Fine.
And a brand new video from Australian duo For King and Country.
Let's get started.
Noticed something interesting recently on your Facebook wall. Everybody is taking this challenge of how hard has aging hit you, 10-year comparison.
Yeah.
Personally, I never wanted to answer that question. Like,
I thought you were going to say, personally, I have not aged.
Well,
that's what you were going to say.
Well, I don't want to know. The point is, who wants to know how hard aging has hit you?
I want to
right?
know. I do. I do. I actually want to know. I really like to look back and say, that's what I used to look like. Or what kind of clothes I was wearing. You know, you look at that.
What if such a male perspective?
If you look worse then or now?
No, now.
Well, then I don't know.
Depressing,
Yeah, it is a little bit.
See, the thing is, because when men get older, they get distinguished. But when women get older, we don't have all the benefits that men have.
Hey, speak for yourself.
Okay. I'm just going to shut up. This is not playing well.
Okay, so we are going to do this challenge. So
Yes.
first up, I think, is me.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, let's see my before picture. Oh, there we go. So I'm going to try to mimic how I looked.
That's good. Just look down a little bit less.
Okay.
Oh, big
right
smile,
there.
that big Maggie smile. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
You look amazing.
Do I look better?
You look better.
Oh, that's good.
You look better.
That's good.
Totally
Okay,
look better.
Sean, you're
Okay,
next.
my turn. Okay. I think
Take off your glasses.
Oh, sorry. Glasses are off.
Love it.
There you
Is it
go.
looking good?
Totally.
Wait, all right.
Awesome.
You look better
Awesome.
now.
Look better.
Absolutely.
Thank you. All right, your turn.
Cheryl, your turn.
I got my pose worked out.
Oh,
That is a good pose.
Oh, yeah.
That is someone who is confident right there.
There you go.
Look at that.
You look great, Cheryl.
Yay! Okay, so maybe it hasn't hit us as hard as we hoped. Hopefully you've done it. We'll post. Are we going to post these pictures?
Sure,
Okay,
yeah.
let's post them.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. Maggie, you have to go get ready for your guests.
Yes.
And you know, speaking of aging, children, don't you think that they kind of age you? Like you have a newborn right now.
They do age you, but they keep you young at the same time because you're like running around all the time. You're bending up. You're like, oh, that's sore. But then after, because you have to pick them up and put them on your shoulders, you just stay young.
You do look young.
Oh, thank
you. But your newest baby's only 35 days old.
30, I think 33. Don't.
33, something like that. Okay,
Yes.
your wife isn't listening. Hopefully. All right, let's head over to Maggie and her guest.
Thanks, guys. Well, my guest today's childhood was filled with much pain, more than any child should have to bear by themselves. But after being told to suck it up at the age of 10, she went through years of pushing her anger deep down inside and faking that everything was fine. Can you relate? Welcome back, Esther Fleece. Alan,
Thank
now.
you.
It's an honor to have you back. Bring us back to that day when you were walking down the aisle of a courtroom to testify in your father's case.
Yeah.
And the judge says that to you.
You know, a lot of us have difficult childhoods, and we like to forget about them. We like to leave them in the past, and that's right where I wanted my childhood. For many years, I left it there. But I was 10 years old, walking down the aisle of a courtroom. I was there to testify in a case. I didn't even know the details of the case. I knew that my mother and my father were on opposite sides of the aisle. And my father and his lawyer took out my diary, and I was just a young girl, and it was read in front of the courtroom. It was a humiliating and violating experience, and I was overcome with emotion like most 10-year-old girls would be, and I broke down crying, and in a moment I really needed comfort. I really needed an attorney for myself, really, somebody to defend me. The judge looked at me and said, you need to suck it up. And that's when I started faking fine, and I lived that way for decades to come.
Esther, what was your relationship with God at that moment? Were you having conversations with God? How did you feel about your relationship with Him?
Yeah, I think a lot of us, we do have those conversations, even though we don't understand who God is, or we might not have grown up in the church. But I felt really abandoned in that moment. And when somebody in authority told me to suck it up, I kind of thought that that's what God wanted of me as well. And I think that that's how many of us are when we're told something from somebody in authority. We take that as gospel truth, or that must be what God says to us. But really, God is the opposite kind of judge than the judge that I sat in front of that day. God never says to suck it up in Scripture. He says, come to me when you're weary. Come to me when you're burdened, and I'm going to bear that with you. And so it took me years to come to know the God who actually sits with me when I cry, instead of telling me to keep faking fine and sucking it up.
your mom, you had a difficult relationship with your mom. She tried to admit you into a psych ward. Or I think she did admit you into a psych ward, change the locks on your home door, your house door, to the point where you had to survive by yourself.
Yes.
Your dad was out of the picture as well.
Yeah, my mother ended up getting remarried, and that stepfather left us just 1 year later. He had an affair. Yeah. And my biological mother, you know, God has helped me forgive her, but I think she was so broken and she didn't know where to turn and she didn't know where to go with her grief as well. And if we don't process our grief and if we don't process the losses that we faced, actually she did take that out of me. And so I was, at 13, I was orphaned really. And if it weren't for families in my community and if it weren't for families inside of the church that said she can live with us, I don't know where I would be and I don't know who I would be.
We're gonna fast forward a little, still trying to be an excellent student. You know, you're excelling in school, you have a great career, and then you're told by God to just give it all away. But I love this point. In speaking to a therapist, they challenged you to write down your laments.
Yes.
Explain, first of all, what laments are and what that process was like.
Well, you know, there is a stigma with going to see a counselor, and I get that because I was one of those people that judged people for going to counseling. But truly, when I sat with somebody who was patient to listen to my pain and didn't just push it aside, there was great healing that I found in counseling. And my counselor said, you know, you have never lamented. And I didn't even know what the word was. And so he was teaching me that a lament is a cry of your heart. It's the pain that's inside. You need to let it out. You don't have to suck it up anymore. And so sure enough, I did. And when I let those cries come out and they sounded like, God, why was I abandoned? Why didn't I have a father that loved me? Why did my mother leave me? All these cries, they kept coming and coming. I found that God met me in that point of distress. That God didn't tell me to just keep going. He said, just let me meet you in that moment of brokenness, and he did. And so lament was really the pathway to freedom. Lament was the pathway to forgiveness. If we haven't lamented, we're not going to be able to forgive. That is just a key component to really what led me to the faith.
Okay, we're going to continue more with Esther Fleece Allen and her book, No More Faking Fine. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Revival is an old-fashioned word that's not used very much anymore, and I think I speak for both our countries, both America and Canada, when I say that we are desperately in need of revival. And let me tell you why. Even if you're not spiritual, even if you don't even know much about the Bible, you don't have to be something's missing, something's wrong. We all feel like, whether we're looking at the environment, or we're looking at the culture, or we're looking at violence in the streets, or we're looking at terrorism, or whatever, we all look at it and we go, this is not the way this should be. Something's missing. There's a revival and a spiritual renewal that only God can send.
Call now with your donation and request your copy of 52 Weeks Through the Psalms devotional by Dr. James Merritt. 1-800-265-3100 or make your donation at crossroads.ca/donate. As you begin the new year, what better time is there to be refreshed in the Psalms? This one-year daily devotional will help you dive into God's Word, hit reset on a fresh new year, and enrich your relationship with God as you find new reasons to come before Him in prayer and praise. This book is our thanks for your ministry support, that we can provide stories of hope and healing to Canadians each and every day. Thank you. With your gift of $45 or more, we would love to send you this great devotional to start your year off strong in the wisdom of the Psalms. Call 1-800-265-3100 or visit crossroads.ca/donate.
We're back with Esther Fleece Allen and this great book, No More Faking Fine, Ending the Pretending. You know, Esther, as you were going through, I mean, an unimaginable childhood, what was the most challenging part of having to relive all of this?
You know, I think as an adult, facing the abandonment and the pains of my past, was actually more difficult than going through it when I was a child. I think when I was a kid, there was just this grace that God, for the first time I had to feel emotions that I tried my entire life to forget, really. So I would say that the pathway to healing and the pathway to forgiveness was actually more difficult than I ever thought it was going to be.
I love this quote, page 97 in your book. Lamenting is a painful process, but it is even more painful to live a life pretending strength, of keeping God an arm's length away. Because
you can't go deep with. You know, you just feel like they're nice, but they're kind of surfacey. I can't get to know them. And I think it's because they don't let themselves know themselves. I mean, they're afraid to go deep. They don't want to go to some hard places. And so it does take work. It takes time. It takes patience. It takes community around you. But I will say it's worth it. It's worth pressing through that pain to get to become a person of substance. And when we are patient with ourselves in pain, we grow to becoming patient with others in pain. And that's what I think I want to say to the viewers is your pain is to help somebody else as well. God doesn't want you to stay stuck in your pain, and he's going to use that pain to help encourage or give strength to somebody else.
you have some great points in the book. One, can we still be joyful in the midst of lament?
Yeah. You know, I think Christians get this reputation of Philippians, and Paul wrote this book to the church, and I think over 16 times he says, be joyful and give thanks. It's really optimistic and encouraging. And so we read those verses and we think, oh, we're supposed to be happy Christians. But we forget that Paul wrote that in jail.
Yeah.
I mean, in jail, when he was afflicted and he was wrongly accused and he went through beatings and persecution, and he faced more than most of us will ever face. He said, I have learned to be content, because the contentment cannot come from our circumstances. The contentment has to come from a relationship with Christ. And so, yes, God does want us to be happy and joyful, but God also very, very much wants to hear our laments, and he wants us to go to him in whatever season we're in. We don't have to hide, whether that's joyful or suffering.
Yeah. Resting in the fact that God hasn't forgotten me. That's huge.
Yes, I think that is where we as a community and as people can do a better job sitting with people in pain. I was never good at this. When I saw people hurting, I thought like, oh, well, let's just, let's go shopping. Or we try to mask. Distract.
Yeah.
And I just think that one of the most kind things to do with somebody in pain is to sit with them and to listen to them and just to give them hope that that's not the end of their story. You know, there's a pastor in the U.S., his name's Louis Giglio. I think he's been on your show before. And when I was in a difficult season, he said, if it is not good yet, then God is not done. And
say that again.
If it is not good yet, then God is not done.
Good.
And I needed that. Sometimes we need that encouragement that that the difficulty is not the end of our story, and it's not.
It is good now. You married, you have a lovely little boy. What's your son's name?
His name is Asa.
Asa.
Yes, he's probably watching. Hi, Asa.
Hi, Asa. How does this feel to have this new chapter in life that God's taking you through?
I'm so grateful. I think that one of the things, I am going to be writing again, and I look forward to that, but one of the things I'm writing about is that God has good things for us and new things for us on this side of the lament that we would miss out if we skipped it. And so God has brought so much healing to my story, but it hasn't come through the circumstances. It's come through watching God help me persevere. And so it's really the joy of my life to be a wife and a mom. It's new responsibilities and new joys. But even as my husband and I were on our honeymoon, we found out that my biological father, who I wrote a lot about, passed away. So even in the highest of highs, we had to deal with loss. And I think that's life, is we have ups and we have downs. And beyond all of that, we have a God who wants to stay steady for us in the midst of whatever comes our way.
Oh, thank you so much, Esther, for just being honest and candid about your journey.
Thank you, Maggie.
Again, the book is No More Faking Fine. And, if you are going through something similar, maybe you're going through a struggle right now, maybe you feel like you haven't heard God, maybe you're calling out to him and you feel like it's just brass, your cries are just hitting a brass ceiling. Know that he is there, that he does hear you, that he does love you. Call our prayer lines, 1-866-273-4444, or you can email prayer@crossroads.ca. Now we're going to head over to Sean. Hey, Sean.
Hey, sometimes we have problems, we have issues, we have things we're trying to hold in on. Now the scriptures say, the Bible, it says that, take all of your cares, your anxieties, all the things that you're stressed about and cast them onto God. Give them to God because He cares for you. Listen, we have people here 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, ready to pray with you, ready to walk with you through this. You can reach us at 1-866-273-4444, or you can reach us at prayer@crossroads.ca. More 100 Huntley Street after this.
Castle is the first video streaming service that's been created to serve you, with high-quality, faith-based media for all ages and a live 24/7 prayer chat. Castle features Christian TV shows, documentaries, teaching series, and kids content. Start your free 30-day trial of Castle and discover this quality Christian resource made for your entertainment and your spiritual growth. Sign up now at intothecastle.com.
We're often quick to run to save ourselves, but we're often slow to stay to protect others. The Bible encourages us to pick one another up when we fall, leaving no one behind. If you're needing encouragement, call our 24/7 prayer lines at 1-866-273-4444 or visit crossroads.ca/247prayer. Anytime, anywhere, we're here for you.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Tonight's lead story once again is megastorm Hercules.
Yes, and though it seems to be settling over the entirety of the continental United States of America, there is some good news.
It is the storm of the century. It has utterly paralyzed our nation.
On a brighter note, people are really...
It's already claimed the dubious...
Why don't we take a look at the weather?
Lately I've been reeling, watching the nightly news. Don't seem to find the rhythm. Gotta get that fire back in my bones before my heart turns into stone. So when somebody please pass the megaphone, I'll shout it on the count of 3. 1, 2, 3. Oh, hear my prayer tonight. I'm singing to the sky. Give me strength to raise my voice. Let me testify. Oh, hear my prayer tonight. 'Cause this is do or die. The time has come to make a choice. And I choose to let it move. Let it move. Let it move. Yeah, I choose to let it move you. Let it move. Let it move you. Yeah, back when I was younger, my eyes were full of life. But now that I am older, I live at the speed of light. Feels like the cycle never stops. Feels like it's never gonna. Gotta get that fire back in my bones before my heart turns into stone. So when somebody please pass the megaphone, I'll shout it on the count of 3. 1, 2, 3. Oh, hear my prayer tonight. I'm singing to the sky. Give me strength to raise my voice. Let me testify. Oh, hear my prayer tonight. 'Cause this is do or die. The time has come to make a choice. joy, 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 joy down in my heart, down in my heart to stay. Joy, 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 joy down in my heart, down in my heart to stay.
On a brighter note, while our circumstances haven't changed, I guess our perspective can. Right, Randy?
Couldn't have said it better myself. This is Channel 13, Nancy and Randy. Good night.
Hey, Mark Clark here, the author of The Problem of God, and the question we're answering today in regard to the major challenges that skeptics ask toward Christianity is the problem of evil and suffering, which we not only feel but we see. The issue of looking around and experiencing awfulness in our lives and saying there can't be an all-loving, all-powerful God has been called the rock of atheism, the reason that lots of people don't actually believe in an all-powerful, all-loving God. And so how do we deal with this question? Well, the first thing to understand is it's not really just a Christian problem. It's a problem that everyone has, from atheists to other religions. And so what you need to do is look at the marketplace of ideas and figure out which idea actually answers this question the best, or something that's most logical with your experience and history and so on. And so if you look at the different views of New Age philosophy or different Eastern philosophies, you might say, well, I believe in karma. But karma is a really bad answer to this question, because it really, I remember landing in a country and I was going, we resolve it now, she'll have to live another life. Well, that's obviously a terrible response to evil and suffering. And so we got to look at the world and say, are these actually good ideas? Atheism doesn't have a great answer. And one of the reasons that Christianity would say that it has a better answer is because actually the problem of evil and suffering, as many scholars and philosophers have pointed out, actually points to the existence of God, not away from him. And what I mean is, if you say something is evil categorically, if you say that is suffering categorically, the question that follows that is, where did you get that category called evil to which you're putting God on trial? If you say murder is wrong or rape is wrong, who actually told you that? You need an objective moral value system to tell you that something is definitively evil. It couldn't come about simply through animalistic instincts, because there's lots of things you would deduce about the world that you would never say, well, that's evil, if we were just animals and all of our cognitive faculties were developed only through animalistic instincts. For instance, praying mantises, after the female's done having sex with the male and she's done with him, rips his head off. Well, that over time would just become part of our moral construct. When you see animals and you see a lion eats a zebra, well, he doesn't murder a zebra, he just kills a zebra. And so what we begin to realize is, at what point did we get this almost transcendent, supernatural, moralistic category called evil and called suffering, by which we look around and say our fellow creatures? Because if we were just animals, when you eliminate those creatures through mass death, it's kind of not actually always a bad thing, because now you're just eliminating people who are your competition for food and for the duplication of your own genes. It points toward the existence of God. And I think Christianity in the marketplace of ideas gives the best answer. That it's not always an answer to every single moment of evil and suffering that we see. In fact, in the Bible, the answer that the book of Job gives, which is a book about this question, is at the end, God comes and he puts Job on trial and says, how small. You and I, what we begin to, Alvin Plantinga pointed this out. He said, when we look at the problem of evil and suffering and think that we should understand what the reasons are for suffering, we begin to kind of go into a category that's not really appropriate. For instance, he said, if I looked into a tent and I said there was no St. Bernard dog, I'd probably be right in saying, well, there's no doubt. But if I looked into a tent and I said that there's no no-see-ums, which are these small bugs that you can't actually see with the human eye, I wouldn't be right, because there might actually be a million in there and I just can't see them. So Plantinga says, when it comes to the problem of evil and suffering, why do we think that it's more like a St. Bernard than a no-see-um? Maybe we can't understand everything. Maybe we're so limited in our capacity as human beings, as philosophers have said for thousands of years. And he says, Jesus came and he entered into our pain and he took on our suffering and evil himself. And among the marketplace of ideas, even though Christianity doesn't give every answer and meaning to every problem, it does say that God cares. He didn't stay distant. He entered in so that he could walk with us through it.
Such a good...
Something that's kind of gotten a little bit of controversy has gone viral, this new Gillette advertisement that you might have seen on social media. Let's take a look.
But some is not enough.
It's not how we treat each other, okay? Okay.
Because the boys watching today will be the men of tomorrow.
Okay, so Gillette has made a little bit of a transition by saying, you know, for so long their tagline has been the best a man can get, changing it to the best a man can be. And some men don't really like this advertisement. I want to hear from you, Sean. What do you think?
Well, I guess I'm on the side that I don't really particularly like it. Just earlier, I mean, my dad would step in before this would happen, a fight would happen. And my dad told me, you hold the door open for somebody. You don't catcall. And so I was like, well, not all men are like this, right? So that was just kind of my take on it. And it's like, well, I'm going to teach my son not to do those things, you know?
Yeah. How about you, Cheryl?
I liked it, actually. It actually made me tear up, because I feel like they said the ad, not all men are like this, and it showed both the best and the worst of men. And women, we have our best and worst too, but I felt like it was challenging men to say, let's be our best. And I think when any of our genders are at our best, there's a beauty in it, because God created us like that. Maggie?
Yeah, you know, kind of on the fence as a mom of 2 boys, could kind of see where you're coming from, Sean. And, you know, in the age of Me Too, where men are kind of being bashed, how do we raise our boys to know what it means to truly be a man? What a great conversation to continue over the weekend. Thanks for joining us. Bye.
Have a great
weekend.
Bye.